Hey guys, welcome back to Bait and Tackle. Today we're going to make some jigs, and we are going to do some just basic jig making. We will make some Arky style jigs with this do-it mold, and we're also going to make some brush jigs. And I'm just going to go through the process and show you guys what we have to do to heat up the lead. And I've got a lead pot over here that we're going to turn on right now, and we'll get it heated up. It's going to take a little while, and then we'll actually put the hooks in these and pour a bunch. And then I'll probably show you the process on powder painting and how to do that effectively. I do have some fluid beds, but I don't know that we're going to get that far. We'll probably just dip into the containers, and I'll show you how to do just the container dips and show you and kind of explain to you what the difference is between if you wanted to just dip in the containers and actually using a fluid bed. I'll just kind of go into a little bit of a description about that. We'll get the jigs made, then we'll probably do some skirt making, and we'll put some skirts on. We'll put together a whole jig just so you guys can see and understand how that all works. So stay tuned. Okay guys, so this is my lead pot setup, and I wanted to kind of show you what I had here. And what I've got is I've got a sealed box where I've got just enough room in here so I can put my hands in here to work on things and pour. And it's all vented out the top, and don't look out for Mr. Biden and Trump there. I haven't used those yet, but I kind of want to at some point. And I've got it through, here's the fan here, and then it goes through a vent system with a check valve. And then the other big tube that's going this way is the box that is for my plastic making station. So it's another sealed box that keeps all the ventilation going out of the house, and I've got it ported through one of the windows from my basement. So all the nastiness, the lead, fumes and the plastic fumes, they go out directly outside. And I've got check valves on this side and on this side, so then that way they can't go, like it can't go through there and go back into the plastic, and it can't go through the plastic back into this one. So this is a low level fan. It's a plastic fan, and I've had it break once or twice. I've actually had to fix it. And if you notice right here, there's another fan assembly right there. So if that one breaks, I can just swap them out. And I've actually fixed it a few times. But what I did was I put a power strip in here with power, and I turn that on. The fan comes on. You can hear that. And then what I do is I keep the lead pot plug hanging out here separate, and I just plug this in. Now it's going to start heating up. And the reason I do that is because when I get done using the lead pot, I unplug this first and I let it hang, but I keep the fan going, so then that way, because the lead's still hot and you're still getting fumes, so it takes those fumes out until this cools down completely. And then I usually shut the fan off later on. So we're going to let that heat up, and we're going to get some hooks ready in the molds, and then we will start pouring some once it's hot. Okay, so this is probably the best view I can give you guys, but this is the brush jig, and it is a small size model BSH-3-SA. So you get with this the 1/4 ounce, the 3/8 ounce, and the 1/2 ounce. Now keep in mind, a lot of people do this, and a lot of people say you have to do this. They say that you have to smoke the molds, meaning you would take a candle and put smoke inside these molds so that the lead would stick less and it would be easier to get out of the molds. I don't do that stuff. I don't like destroying my molds. I want to keep them clean. The one thing I will do on occasion is if they're not filling in all the way completely, like down at the hook part right here where it would actually keep the plastic on, I would actually heat this up on the mold. So I'd fold it up like this and set it on top of the actual lead pot to heat up real good. Then that way you get a better complete pour, because if everything is hot, including the hook, it pours a lot smoother. Now some molds it works better, some molds it doesn't, but again, I don't smoke molds and I don't use mold release either. The other one we're going to do is the Arky style jig, and this is the 1/4 ounce, 3/8 and 1/2 as well, just like the other one is. And this is the ARK-3-AFG, I believe. So there's that style. And what that is kind of like it's a rounded head, but it kind of flattens out a little bit. So it's a pretty unique jig. So but we're gonna do both of these, and I got a bunch of hooks already, and I think I know which sizes we're gonna do. I think I'm gonna do a lot of 1/2 ounce weights. So I'm gonna do a bunch of 1/2s, Arkies, and I'm gonna do a bunch of 1/2s I believe. I think we're going to do some 3/8 as well on the brush jig. So let's get some hooks put in these. I believe these are all the same size. I just had two different piles here. I don't think these are these different? Yeah, they are different. Okay, so this is the smaller hook for the 3/8. I'm just going to go ahead and put that in there. And this one lays uniquely onto a little eyepiece that keeps it in place there. So that's pretty smooth. So we're going to do 2 at a time in this mold. And unfortunately this mold we're only going to be able to do 1 at a time. And see how that hook eye on this one is actually angled sideways. So it goes into a little slot. But it holds it in there real nice and firm. Now there are other do-it molds that are a little bit harder to use. Sometimes I have issues with the hooks moving around. One in particular is the weighted hooks for swim baits. When I make those, I have a tough time with the hooks moving around a lot. So what I end up doing is taking some blue painter's tape and just like taping the hook inside the mold to hold it in place, and it really doesn't affect the pouring, and it keeps that hook from moving around too much. Because if the hook does move in those weighted jig things, the lead won't pour in the cavity all the way, like especially if the hook is too close to the outside of the cavity. So if the hook moves down, it kind of messes that up. And we'll do that in a future video. I will do a weighted hook video at some point. These ones right here. So these are the weighted hooks. So we'll do a video on those at some point. Now while we're waiting for the lead to heat up, I just wanted to show you some of the ones I'd already been working on. These are some casting jigs, so these will have eyes on them. I have not put them on yet, but these are some of the skirts that I've been working on. Like this one I call Mean Green, and it's basically just green pumpkin with chartreuse, and it's got some barbed wire effect in there and some glitter and whatnot, but those came out pretty cool. And the eyes are like a reflective eye. I don't know if you can see that. I don't know if it'll really zoom into that real good or not, probably not. But it's that's a pretty sweet looking jig. And we'll also go into detail how we put these little brush guards on, the little weed guards. And I like to leave everything long when I make them for customers and myself, because what I like to do is if I think the skirt's too long, I can trim it up a little bit. You can trim that out in the field when you're fishing. And the same thing with the weed guard. I like to trim up the weed guard a little bit, but I like to leave it long so that if the customer prefers it to be long, then they can trim them themselves. And I always like to do a full skirt too. A lot of people don't like to do a full skirt like I do. I use 3 full tabs, and we'll get into that later in the video, the tabs and what you can do. And I've got some special tools for doing the jig skirts as well. I've got 2 different ones, but there's one that I really like to use a lot, and I'll show you that one as well. Here's one that I just made up for the fall time, and I posted it on Instagram, and I thought it was a pretty slick little jig. I like the color. It's kind of like, I think it's got some brown pumpkin in it or green pumpkin in it, but it is truly a nice little red spring color. Got some red eyes. That's like a silver black head. That kind of paint right there, that we would definitely use the fluid bed for. But in this video, like I said, I'm not going to do the fluid bed this time, but I will explain to you what the difference would be between the fluid bed and doing just straight up out of a container. All right, the lead's hot. I wanted to show you guys what I do. Now, funny story about the lead in this pot. This is one of the better pots that you can buy. It has the handle on it that releases the lead out the bottom, see it? And I have other pots, the small pot, that you melt down, and you could use a ladle like this to scoop it out of, and it's okay. But some of the molds, they have a real tough time pushing the lead in better than the way I'd like it to be. And this is the other type of lead pot that's got the handle on the side that lifts up and down. This one works okay, but I personally like this one better with the single handle that pulls up like this. Now I went ahead and bought a little cast iron pot just to keep underneath it, so that when the lead drips, it drips into that. And funny story is, this box down here that I've got full of lead, what it was the old time shower stalls that were made in houses, and my house happens to be made back in the late 50s. Or late 60s. The liner was made out of lead, soft lead, So what I did was I took the liner out when I remodeled our shower, and it gave me like 60 pounds of lead. So I melted it down in the small pot down there, and then I bought one of these ingot makers and poured ingots. So now I have a whole boatload of ingots of lead. And technically speaking, for safety's sake, you shouldn't be touching this stuff without gloves on. But I have a real tough problem using gloves. But I use like these lightweight gloves sometimes, just when I'm, messing with the lead. But the more important thing is that the fumes are going up and out through that outside. So I'm not breathing the stuff in. It's contained and it's going outside. That's the important part. Lead stuff is very dangerous. Always wash my hands when I'm working with it afterwards and before, and hand and stuff like that, just to make sure that I don't have anything on my skin. But we are going to go ahead and I'm going to try to set you up here so that you can see this while I'm doing the first mold here. Okay, so the one thing that I forgot to show you guys is you put the hooks in and you put the pins in, and that's the pinhole for your weed guards. And I just completely forgot about it. So I just poured lead in there. What it does is the lead goes right through that hole when it gets up to that spot. So we're going to go ahead and close this up. Now that we got our pinholes in there, I'm going to put my gloves back on. And we are going to take this and we're going to pour those too. Now some of this leaks just because of the lead pot and how it is, and that's okay. And it will drip a little bit, and I just got to keep pushing the handle down a little bit to keep it there. Let me zoom in here so you guys can see a little bit better. And I've got my mold ready. And again, I'm going to do the middle one, and I'm going to do the end one. But I feel that when you have that tip all the way in the top of that mold, it's a lot better of a pour. You get that it pushes that lead down in there, and see, this is what you get. You get the lead all the way up to the top. So now I'm going to move you over here, and I'm going to show you what we got. There you go. So it filled in all the way, and it's good because it got the wire holders good, or the bait holders. They came out great. They filled in nicely, and all we got to do is take these out, and they're going to be a little warm. All we got to do is take these out, and you can use gloves, and sometimes I like to use a pair of needle nose. Seems to help a lot. I just take them, just grab the sprue, pull them out. Then what you can do is take a pair of side cutters, and this is what I like to use. They're actually called flush cutters, little flush cutters, and they're for like jewelry making and all sorts of other stuff. They're pretty cheap. You can pick them up at Michael's or whatever, and you just cut the top off. And then what we'll have to do here afterwards is I take this little triangle file, and I just go ahead and file off that part, and that's it. So now this is ready to be painted. And what I like to do is I like to leave this keeper, this little keeper for the weed guard that goes in, and we glue them in later. And I like to keep that in there. Some people take them out now and they paint them, but then you get paint in the hole. But I like to keep them in, do the paint, and then I pull them out after when the paint is heated up. When it's in there, I just pull this out, then you get a nice clean hole, and then heat it up again. And then you can just take these pinholes, and like you'll see, I've got a couple over here that have paint on them, and I just take a little pair of pliers like these, and I just go ahead and scrape off the paint on them. So I'll show you that process when we get to that. So that's one of them, and this is the other one, and I'm going to go ahead and make up a bunch more of these, and then after I'm done with those, and we'll do some casting jigs. I think I'm going to do the casting jig real quick for you, just so you can see what it looks like after you pour it. And I probably made the same mistake with the Arctic jig. I did. This also has one of these pinholes. You take one of these pins and put it in there for the weed guard holder. So make sure the hook's in the right spot, make sure the pin's in there, and then it's ready to pour. So let's just go ahead and bring it over here and we'll do this again. Okay, so we'll get this out of the way. We'll go right to that last hole. Everything's in there tight. It should be flush. Looks like it's a little loose. I'm just going to double check it. I think we're okay. Make sure it's closed. And then I wipe off the excess with the edge of the mold, and then I fill it up. And then right to the top. That's all you got to do. And then we'll come back over here. And then I'll show you what we got with this mold. Came out on that side. Sometimes it doesn't matter, but it'll come out on either, whatever side it likes. Okay, so this one, we got a little bit of overflashing there. I'm not sure what happened there. I don't know if this pin was a little bit too thick or whatever. But what we'll do is we'll just file that out of there. But same thing, grab it by the sprue, pull it out. Take it off. See that flashing there, right there? But we'll just file that out of there. And it'll come right out. Let's cut the sprue off first. But pretty simple. File off the extra if you got any kind of flashing there. I'm trying to do this and kind of show you guys at the same time, but it's kind of tough with the camera in my face. So again, a little extra flashing, no big deal. Just file it out of there. It's lead, it's soft, it's easy to work with, comes right out. And then sometimes you might get a little bit extra, like down at the bottom where the end of the mold is. And you could just take some flush cutters, and I already broke the tip on this one, but you can take just some flush cutters and trim off the edge. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all of my lead pouring done first. So I'm going to make up a bunch of these. I think I'm going to do, I think it's 20 of these and like 24 of the brush jigs. I'm going to go ahead and make up a bunch of these, and we will come back. We will come back and we will start painting them after I get them all cleaned up. All right, guys, got everything cleaned up. We're ready to do some of these, and I'm just gonna do a couple of them so that you guys get the understanding of taking these jig heads and powder painting them. So this is my heat gun. It's an older heat gun, and it's a 4.5 amp. I'm not sure what the wattage is because they did it differently in the older days, but it's a pretty high intensity heat. So I put it on high, and it's very warm. It will burn your fingers. But what I do is just kind of go over it a little bit. And one thing you got to do with these powder paints when you're using them in the containers, and I use Protec most of the time, is you got to shake them up real good. And then when you take the top off, it's really fluffy. So once in a while, you have to do that in order to get this to fluff up so it's nice and fluffy, so when you stick it in there you're not, getting big gobs of paint and stuff like that. So for green pumpkin and like black simple colors, I really don't mind dipping them in the containers, the Protec containers. They're actually, I think, easier that way. But if you have some thicker type paint, like paint with different veins in it, two-tone paint where it's like white and gray, or black and silver, or white with silver or something like that, or blue and white or whatever. If you've got something that's a little bit thicker, and I've got one that's like camo black, then I prefer, see, just knock off the powder, like I said, light and fluffy, and that's already really good. So the only other thing that I like to do is I've got some of these little hole poker things just to clean out the lure eyes, And then what I like to do is take them back over to the heat. And actually, before I do that, I usually like to take the try to take the pins out before you set the paint. So now the pin's out, and it's got a real nice clean hole if you leave the pin in there. So now we go back to the heat. Now the hole is clean, and the paint is stuck to the jig real good, and it will get around the eye of the hook, and that's not a problem. And again, I'll just spin it, get it heated up so it looks nice and glossed over, and it will gloss over if you just put it right into the oven or toaster oven or whatever you prefer to use to do your jig baking with. So I personally, I mean, that comes out great, like to just use the powder paint like that, and then I put it on this tray here, and this fits inside of my toaster oven that I have downstairs, and I set that to 350 or 325. I think the directions say it on here to bake for 350 for 20 minutes, and that's typically what I do is 350 for about 20 minutes. Now again, what I was saying about the two-tone paints like black vein and silver, and I'll show you this real quick if I can get it open without making a mess. These are very, very thick paints. This is a black and silver vein, and they're very tough to use in the container. You heat them up, you'll dip them in, and you'll shake it up even, but it's just so heavy, the paint, that it tries to settle to the bottom, and when you dip it, you'll dip it, and it'll be okay at first. You'll heat it up and everything, but then when you bake it, it'll cause drip marks. So I've seen some other methods of people doing different things, like they have these little jig stands that hold your jig upright like this instead of down, so then that way the paint would run down if there was excess on it, which is kind of cool and all, but I mean, I'm so used to the preferred method of just hanging them on these neat little racks that I got from a long time ago and just modified them to fit in my toaster oven. I'm just so used to doing it that way that I'd rather just continue doing what I'm doing. So again, make sure your eyes are clean. You can break them afterwards, but I tend to do it before I actually bake them, then that way I know that they're ready to go. So you can probably get about, I don't know, 4 dips I'd say out of this after shaking it up once, and then I like to put the cap back on and shake it up again. So again, heat it up real good on the highest heat setting in your heat gun for probably about, I don't know, 15 seconds or 20 seconds or something like that, whatever you feel like you've got to heat it up to. It's just enough to heat the lead up to get warm enough to where the paint would stick. That's all it's for. You know, super hot, it'll just automatically start going to the jig. And actually I can tell just by sticking this in that paint that it really wasn't fluffed up enough. I think it's just because I'm moving it around too much. But you'll see that I'll take that out of there like this. I'll take the pin out of there before I set the paint. It's, again, that hole is nice and clean. So I'm going to go ahead and heat this up. I'm going to put the cap back on this. And I'm going to shake this up, and I'm going to repeat the process. So I'm going to do a bunch of these this color with the green pumpkin, and then I'm going to switch over to black, and I think I might record a little bit of that, show you guys just the difference in the different colors, and then I'll get some footage of, you know, a bunch of these jigs on the racks and stuff like that ready to go for you. So let me finish this one just so I can say we did 2 of these. And that's set already. So it's nice and shiny already. It's a good looking jig. The hook eye is clear. So we're going to go ahead and take that off. And I like to use these little vice grips to hold on to it. And I'll probably fit about, I don't know, probably 15 to 20 on this rack, and then I'll bake it, and then I'll just switch off. I've got quite a few jigs here I got to get done, so let me get these green pumpkins squared away, and then I will come back and we will do some black on some of the brush jigs. Well guys, I've got these 10 green pumpkins done, and it's the next day, by the way. I had to leave to get some stuff done last night, so I was only able to get some of the green pumpkin ones done. So now I'm going to move on to doing the black. And one misconception I did tell you guys was when you're dipping in these, shake them up like every 2, especially if you're doing half-ounce jigs. So shake this up real good in between every 2 that you do. These bigger containers that I got from Lure Parts Online, these ones you can get away with a few more, probably like 3 to 4. So, but I just wanted to get one of these black ones done and explain that to you, just so I could show you guys. It's the same process. Each color is the same process, but again, when you're using thicker paints, you want the fluid bed to get an even coat of the paint so that you don't get any drips. So fluid beds are very beneficial, especially with different colors that are tougher. But you just dip it in, knock it off. Then I take the pin out and then heat it up again. And it's the same process. And I'm going to go ahead and do one more of these just to show you, and then I'm going to go off camera here and do the rest. And then I'll probably come back and do some of the brush jigs. This is an order for one of my buddies. He wanted a bunch of jigs and he wanted some of these Arkies and brush jigs. So I figured I'd go ahead and do that. But came out good. The eye's nice and clean. You probably can't. Yeah, you can see that through my hand. And the hole for the weed guards, when we put the weed guard in later, it's nice and clean. That's why I like doing the pins. Now you got to clean these pins when you're done. So the funky thing is taking these pins, and then I take just a pair of like these needle nose and just scratch the paint off. Let's see how it comes right off. It's chipping off. So it's a lengthy process to clean these up real good, but I find that having a clean eye or having a clean hole to put your weed guard in later, and they clean up really good. And then I just put them back in my little container of hairpins. But I've got a lot of them out right now, and I've got a lot of pins to clean because apparently last time I did this, I did not clean the pins up. So, naughty me. So I've got a whole bunch I've got to clean up at some point here. But again, keeps your jig heads real nice, keeps the eyes clean and the holes clean for keeps the holes clean for the weed guards. The eyelets, the actual hook eye, I take this little husky poking tool, or you can get these other little pin prick tools, almost kind of like a hole punch, but it's not quite, it doesn't move on you. And I just take that and I just put it through the eye. And usually what it does is if there's too much paint in there and you push through, you'll see it, the paint will just mound up. And then I take like a pair of flush cutters and just grab it and pull it off, and then heat it back up again to make it nice and smooth. So I haven't been running into that too much, because as long as you keep the paint shook up enough to where it's nice and thin, you shouldn't have too many problems with having to clean out the hook eyes too much. Now, if the paint gets thicker and you feel that it's tough to dip in there, then yes, you're probably going to end up getting a lot of paint on the eye, and that will cause issues. You're going to have to clean that eye out real good. And it's really no fun, I can tell you this from experience, it's really not fun getting paint in the eyes and then having to break the eye paint afterwards. You're really better off doing it now. So if you see that there's too much excess paint in the hook eye, then you need to clean it out before you put them in the bake process. So don't put them in if the eyes aren't, if they're going to close up on you and you see like there's some thick paint, if the eye looks like it's closed up a little bit, try to get as much of that out of there before you actually bake them. Because once you bake them, they're going to be set in there. And then you got to break them apart with one of those hook eye breakers, one of those little, right here, those little tools to clean out the hook eyes, cleans the paint out, and they're a pain in the butt once that hook is set. or once that paint is set. I'm sorry. So again, take that out, nice clean hole, heat it up again. I will check the hook eye on this, but right now from what I'm looking at, it looks good. So I will continue, after I get this one done, I'll show you guys. And I will continue to do the rest of them. I have a lot to do. And I might do a little time lapse in here, showing me do some of these. Probably on the brush jigs. Or maybe I'll do it on this one too. I don't know. But there you go. Nice clean paint job. Nice and glossy. And once again, once you bake it, it'll be good. But see how clean that eye is for clean that hole is for the weed guard. It pops right in there. Use some super glue, sticks right to the lead. It's way better than trying to paint into the hole and then having to squeeze that weed guard in there later, or trying to clean out the holes after that. It's just a pain in the butt. I know before I've used some, you can probably see that hook eye. Before I've used like some little drill bits and stuff to try to clean out those weed guard holes, and it is not fun. So I'm going to go ahead and do the rest of these black, and then we'll come back and do the brush jigs, the 2 different size brush jigs I have, and we'll do those as well. And I might just show you 1 or 2 of those, or I might just do it on a time lapse. Then that way you guys get the point. We've done this enough, so let's go. I wanted to see if I could give you guys kind of a little bit closer view of me heating this up. I'm just trying to heat up all sides of it and get it heated up real well. Just to see if I could try not to open up the jaws on this forceps, because I don't want it to pop out. But just heat it up good, and then pop it in there, tap it off, just like that. And then we take the pin out, which you've seen me do, and then put it right back on the heat. I don't know how this footage is going to come out, so I'm not sure if I'm going to use it or not, but hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing pretty good. I'm just rolling the heat on it, again, just to make it glossy. And once it's glossy, I mean, it's going to get baked anyway at 350, so that whatever's not shiny will be shiny once it gets baked for 20 minutes. But I think we're good. See that nice clean weed guard hole. The eyelet is nice and clean. That's what we're looking for. And not too much paint. So it's very important to keep shaking that paint up. Now, one thing I will mention, guys, is that if you're doing this and you're doing the paint part, when you're dipping it in the powder paint, and it feels like it's hard to push into the paint, then you're not doing it. It's going to be too thick. It's got to be loose. It's got to be very loose for that paint to work and coat correctly. Otherwise, you're going to get big gobs. And when I hang these, the big gob will be down here. So I'm hoping that I don't get any on this run, but if I do, it'll be a nice example to show you guys what happens when the paint runs like that. And I'm not saying that you can't use fluid beds for every color. You can. I mean, matter of fact, I probably would recommend that. I'm just so used to doing it out of the can. That's what I've started with, and it's really not that big a deal to me, as long as you know how to keep shaking the paint. As long as you've got it in your brain to keep consistently shaking the paint up, you'll be fine. But again, we'll see if any of these have the drips, but I don't think they're going to. I think I did these pretty well. I did have one that was a little tough pushing into the jar, so I didn't shake it up enough, but if it does come back where it's got a drip in it, I will show you, because I want you to see what that looks like. So I just turned my toaster oven to bake. We're at 350 and it's on. So give that a second to heat up. And we're going to take these bad boys and put them in. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to put them in right now. Let it preheat in that too. It's not going to hurt it. So I'm going to set these down for a second. Open this up. Be careful not to burn yourself in the toaster oven. And they're all in there. So we'll close this up and we will let that bake for about 20 minutes. So get out your phone, which I have right here. Get out a timer. Set it for 20 minutes. 21, I guess, just because I'm preheating. Start it and let her count down. In 20 minutes, we'll be back. Okay, guys, time is up. I've got these heat gloves, and I'm gonna put one down right here, and I'm gonna put one on my hand so I can grab this thing. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna open this up. It's been 20 minutes. We're going to very carefully pull this out. I'm going to grab it with two fingers as close as I can to the middle. Might tilt a little bit. We're going to put it out here. And we're going to let that sit for probably about, I don't know, 15-20 minutes. Let it cool down real good. And then we can get back to putting the weed guards in. And then after we put the weed guards in, we can then get on to making the skirts. So I'm going to go ahead and let those cool down. We're going to do those, and we're going to go back over here to the shop side over here and do the brush jigs. And one thing I forgot to mention was, while you have this, you want to double check all the eyelet holes to make sure none of them sealed up, because it is a little bit easier to break them when they come right out of the oven. They all look good. I do want to double check to see if any of them have done any kind of drippage, which none of them have. They all came out very good. I didn't even have any on the one that I thought that I was going to have issues with. Even that one didn't have enough paint to drip. So I think we're okay. Okay, so I do have two of these racks, so luckily I can do another set while the other one's cooling down. And the one thing that I'm going to do here is, I think these are the small size, the 3/8, and then I've also got some half ounce, half ounce. So I've got 3/8 ounce, half ounce, and we're gonna do each. I think I've got 12 of each, but same colors. We're gonna do. We're going to do six. 6 of these are going to be black, and 6 of these are going to be green pumpkin. So I've just got to split these into 2s, and we're going to do the 3/8 first, and probably start with the black Shake it up good. And again, you just got to make sure that you keep consistently shaking that stuff, the powder paint. That way you get a nice even coat, especially if you're working out of the canisters. We'll probably do another video coming up at some point with doing different style jig heads and using the fluid beds, because there are some that I really like to do, like this for an example is a casting jig. I'm not sure if you can see that without putting my hand behind it, but that is a two-tone color. I believe that is black with silver vein, and that comes out really nice. So, and this is a type that you would put eyeballs on. So for an example, here's a different one that is same color scheme. I've already got a skirt on it, but see the head on that? That's a poison tail jig, which has eyes. So we actually glued eyes onto the jig itself. So we might do some of those as well at some point in a later video. But for now, we're going to continue doing this with the cups. And again, I'm going to do black first. Get that done with. And I've got to do 6 of each. These ones are a little bit different shaped, but as long as you heat it up, it's good. Again, as long as it's loose in the paint, you can go ahead, remove the pin, then heat it up again. Same thing. Now these eyes are a little different on these jigs because they're sideways instead of being the other way. So you just got to do the same process. Make sure they're cleaned out real good, not a lot of paint in there. If not, this one looks good. You're ready to go. So I'm going to do one more just to show you guys, and then I'll just go off camera and do the rest of them. So let me do this last one here. And again, just make sure you get some consistent heat on it, enough to where it's heated up real good. And all you want is that paint to stick. So as long as it's loose, which it is. Now this one may have a hook eye that might be thick, which I kind of was hoping that I could get one. That way I could show you guys. So let's heat it up. And then once we get it heated up, we'll double check the eyelet just to make sure that it's not too much. And I've had some issues in the past with these dripping too, but that actually looks really good. I can see through that one as well. I don't know if you can see that. Let's see if I can get it right. There it is. So you can see the hook eye is good. So I'm going to do a bunch more of these, and then I'll come back. Okay, we're going to do the same process here. Turn that on, 350. I went ahead and got another whole set done. I got about 18 there. Those are the brush jigs. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this over here. It's cold, so I'm just going to set it down for a second. Open the door. And we're going to go ahead and stick her in there. I'm trying not to burn myself because it is still hot from before. So there you have it. 18 more going in. Shut it. Set the timer for 20. So we'll go ahead and I'm just going to go ahead for safety measures and do 21. So there she goes. Timer set. Wait for her to get done. In the meantime, I think I'm just going to take these off of this rack because I've got a few more I've got to do. Okay guys, I got my hot glove on. We're done. It's been 20 minutes. I'll take this guy out very carefully. Put him on the other glove to set. And we're going to let those dry. Now, to check these, you got to go sideways to check all the eyes. So it's a little bit difficult. You really got to get down there to see it. I don't know if you can see it, but I can see through the eyelets. And that's really all you're looking for, is just to make sure you can see out through the eyelets. So I checked them all. Looks good that way. As far as bumps and drips, I don't see any that stand out, so I think we're good there. And it really is a perfection thing. I mean, it takes a while to do these a few times and to make sure that you don't get any drips. So again, make sure you're shaking up that powder paint real good so it's real loose and real thin. And if you dip them into the container and it feels hard, like you got to push it in there real hard, then chances are you're going to have too much paint on there, especially if you heat up the jig too much. Okay guys, so I think we're all set with the painting. They all came out great. I didn't have any drips. I wish I had one to show you with a heavy drip, but luckily I didn't get any. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take the weed guards. And what I like to do is I like to take 2 pieces off just so it fits a little bit better. And then we're going to take a little bit of glue and we're going to put some glue in that hole, and then we're just going to push in the weed guard. That's it. So I like to use this Loctite super glue. It's the Ultra Gel Control. And I also use this when I put eyeballs on baits, on plastic baits, and on lead products. So you just need a little bit. Take it and push it in there. Let that dry, and that one's all set. So I'll do one more. I'll do one of these casting jigs. Or not casting jigs, arky jigs. So again, I like to take 2 off. Put a little glue in the hole. And just pop that in there. And now I think you can understand and see what I was talking about with the keeping the hole clean. Because if you keep that hole clean, that really helps putting these weed guards in later. Instead of trying to paint and getting the paint down in the hole and then having to clean it out with like a drill bit or something else. So I'm going to pause this. I'm going to go ahead and get all these taken care of, and then we will come back and do the skirts. All the weed guards are now completed. I've got them all on both black and the green pumpkin. Now I'm going to go ahead and show y'all how to make some nice skirts. And I'm actually going to experiment a little bit. And I've got these. This is a big bag of Perfect Craw from Lurecraft. And I'm going to go ahead and make up 2 skirts just to show you guys how this works. So I'm going to use 1 tab of that. I'm going to use 1 tab of, it's a green pumpkin solid silicone skirt. Just got some black flake in it. So I'm going to use 1 of that, 1 tab of that. Then I'm going to move on to one that's got a ripple layer to it. It's 433 Green Pumpkin Nature's Edge. This has a little bit of a ripple to it, so it's got like a textured finish to it. So that's pretty cool. We're going to use 1 tab of each in each skirt. And then we're going to use 522, which is a kind of pearlized, not pearlized, but like it's got some kind of a flash to it. See the blue? But it's green pumpkin. So it's green pumpkin, but it's got a little bit of a sheen to it, like this blue color. So we're going to throw that in there for just a little bit of a colored effect. Okay, so we're going to use those 4. And like I said, I like to use a lot of skirt material. Sometimes you can use thinner, you can take out 1 tab, just use 3 tabs. Or you can cut tabs in half if you want long-wise. If you take one of these tabs, you can cut them this way. And you could just use a half a tab if you want. So if you wanted to like throw like a pop of color in there that you wanted to throw. But for these, specifically speaking, I just want to do a green pumpkin skirt for this green pumpkin jig, and I want to just show you guys what other tools you can use too. Now, when you're building these skirts, typically they sell these little things called collars, and I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this. Keeps rolling out of my hand, but it's a little rubber piece that's like a tube with a little hollow piece in the middle, and you would stick it through that. Now, I personally do not like those because they break and they dry out over time. I have started using these little 4mm O-rings, an O-ring gasket for, like, you know, the sink or some kind of a water sealant type gasket. So it's a little O-ring, and I like to use these better than I like to use the collars. That's just my personal preference. And some of the tools I use, I got this from Lure Factors, and it's a little stretch out tool where you put the gasket or the O-ring there, and you can actually open this up and pull the skirt material through and then let it back down. And it works pretty well. And then the other tool I have is just a pair of pliers that I bought, special skirt making pliers that you can actually, it's got two little bump outs on the ends so that you can take your little gasket or your collar and you can put it on there and spread it apart like that. And I personally like this one, so you could just spread it apart. Then I can take my 4 tabs, and I'm actually just going to go ahead and reorganize these. I kind of want this perfect craw to be in the middle, and I'll put the rippled one in the middle, and then I'm going to put that shiny one on the outside. So I'm going to put those together like that, and then I'm going to go ahead and make sure that my gasket's down far enough. And I'm going to go ahead and try to feed all 4 of these. Whoop. And sometimes that happens too. These gaskets break and you're just putting too much stress on them. And even the collars do that too. But the idea is I want to get all 4 through there, through that hole, and feed them through. And I got it through. All 4 through. Then you can just kind of put it in the middle and let go. Pull the tool out. And then what I like to do just to even things out is I like to just grab the ends of the tabs here. And it doesn't matter what order they are in at this point. And you could just roll this gasket back and forth, which is kind of nice. You can't really do that with the other one. So it looks like they've kind of got a little messy there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut the tab ends off, and then I'll show you what the skirt actually looks like. So nice pair of straight edge scissors. Cut that off. There's the end of your skirt. There might be a couple that are stuck together. Just get them unstuck with your fingers. And then on the other end, same thing. Take your 4 tabs, cut the ends off. There might be some stragglers. I know I got one in here that broke off too early, so I just pull that one out. And then you can trim it up the best you want. So again, I like to have full skirts. This is a pretty full skirt. And then what I like to do is I like to push the gasket towards one end, a little bit more towards one end. And then the longer end of the skirt is going to be what's going to come down past your head. So if I can get this out of the way, put this right in the middle, bury it right in the middle, put it up through the skirt. I don't know if you guys can see this very well. Put it up through the skirt, and then it's got to go over the bump on the head. Just make sure that we're good here. So see that? It's coming up the hook, and then you got to push it all the way up onto that ring, past that ring. And it'll roll a little bit too. That's why I give it a little bit extra. And that's that right there. So got a little bit of perfect craw on there, a little bit of brown, and then when you're done, you can just sit here and trim it up whatever way you want. I like to leave them long, just so then that way, as a customer, if you order these from me or you buy some of these from me, you can trim them the way you want them. So I kind of like to leave them long, leave a little bit of extra in there, and then that way you get some to trim. But that is your jig right there. So came out pretty well. That skirt color combo works good. That's the first time I've actually tried that, and I probably will use that in the future. Just gives you a nice little variation, gives you a little bit of sheen, gives you a little bit of perfect craw, a little bit of brown in there. Then it's got some ripple in there for some texture, and got that little bit of color there, that little pop, that little sheen color. So that is really nice. So there's one. We're gonna go ahead and make another one. So I'm going to go ahead and reorganize this again, and instead of being dumb, and I should have just done this to begin with, just put them on my trusty old pliers and open the pliers up and feed through my 4 tabs. And again, puts a lot of stress on that, but once you get them through, pull it through halfway, it's good. And then just let it go, pull it out, roll it a few times is what I like to do, just to get the skirt centered, and that time it worked a lot better. And then we go ahead and cut off our tab ends. Looks like there was a little bit of a piece of one left. Just cut that off, and then go ahead and cut off the other end. We got this nice little skirt. And again, keep it to one side. That's what I just like to do. Take one of your jigs, push it through, push it through. See that again? And it's got to go up past that circle, because you got a bait keeper on there, then you got the collar for keeping the skirt on, which the skirt one is closer to the head. So get it up in there, get it nice and organized, pull it out, get the pieces spread apart if that you need to, twist it a little bit if you don't like the orientation of it. But I think that will suffice. That looks good. So again, there's a lot of different ways you can do this. You know, there is some material called living rubber, which I think I've got some. Hold on, I'll show you. It's a little bit more difficult to use. It comes in a rubber strand, and what you do is you actually take it, and when you're cutting it, you pull, and that's when it splits apart. You see how that split apart like that? So when you're actually cutting it, and I'll just cut a piece off here just to demonstrate for you guys, but when you're pulling on it and you start to cut, that's when it actually splits the things apart. So you really need something to hold on to it, like a skirt, like a O-ring or a collar to hold the middle. Then you can do this, and then you cut the ends of it, and then it starts splitting. So it's really kind of, because I mean, sitting here trying to break these apart individually, it's just really hard to do. So I'm not a huge fan of it. They do look good, and they last a long time, but for what we're doing, the tabs seem to be my favorite, the silicone tabs. So that'll wrap that up, guys. I think I'm just going to go ahead and wrap up the video now. We made all these jigs, but these are for a customer. I wanted to show you that process, and then I wanted to show you how we would actually make some jig skirts and make some really nice premium style jigs like these. So we will wrap that up, and I think maybe in the future we might do a couple different videos of just maybe making some different skirt colors, because I've got a lot of different ones that I like to make, and I'd like to share those with you guys. Okay guys, well that's going to wrap it up for today's video. Hope you liked the jig making tour, doing some lead, showing you some of the lead tools we use, painting, powder painting, and what's beneficial using the cans or using the little containers or using the fluid bed, which I didn't use the fluid bed this time, but I've done a fluid bed video, so you guys can go check that out if you want. And then putting the weed guards on, and then making some skirts. So just a generalized basic jig making video for anybody that wants to get into this building type, lead based products for doing fishing lures, jigs, weighted hooks, other various things that you wanted to try but with lead. All I can stress is that wear gloves and use protective equipment. This stuff is nasty, and lead does cause cancer, so you really need to make sure you have a very well ventilated area when you're doing this. I recommend outside, but if you can't do it outside like me, I have a nice little setup with a vent fan and a sealed box unit, so then that way none of those harmful, nasty vapors are getting near me. I'm not breathing any of that stuff in. It's going up and outside. So thank you guys again for watching. Please like, comment, share, subscribe. We will do another big giveaway when we get to 1,000 subscribers. We're more than halfway there. I'd like to continue the pace. I've been slowing down a little bit on videos. Work has been pretty crazy, but we're going to continue and do the best we can. So thank you guys again, and remember, keep on baiting.